Hey guys, it's Katie at scrappingkatie.ctmh.com, and I am doing a blog hop today featuring the Operation Smile stamp set from Close to My Heart. So I thought I would show you the process using our Distress Oxide inks. I have abandoned coral right here that I'm just applying to my card front using a mini blending tool. And then I've pulled out the spiced marmalade, and then I'm going to pull out the mustard seed. Now, I love how these colors blend together, and these Distress Oxide inks, they just blend really well. If you haven't used them, they're just so creamy. I'm going to go back to the abandoned coral just to make that a little bit darker. And then I don't like that you can see the round sponge shape. So I'm just going to put those ink pads on my multi-surface mat and then spray it with water and then use the packaging technique to pick up some of that ink and put on those rounded sponged areas just to kind of mask it so you can't see it. So I'm going to clean that up, kind of daub some of those really wet spots, and then I'm going to take another card front and utilize what's left on my multi-purpose mat. I don't like any of that to go to waste. I just love that look. So off camera, I have stamped a whole bunch of the floral images from this stamp set that benefits Operation Smile. I'll leave all the links down below so you can go check it out, but $7 of every purchase of the stamp set goes directly to Operation Smile to help kids with their cleft lip and palette surgeries. So right here, I'm using the same colors of the Distress Oxide inks and those sponges, and I'm just sponging over the top of the leaves and the floral pieces. And then I'm going to fussy cut them out. Now, I did ink these images up with just charcoal ink. I didn't use any special ink, and I just love the softness that charcoal ink adds to these flower pieces. And then, of course, when you're sponging Distress Oxide, it sits on top of the paper. And so I love that it even further mutes that charcoal line because those inks are over the top of that outline. So I'm just fussy cutting those larger flowers out. Now I'm going to fussy cut all the rest off camera so you don't have to watch that process. But once I get all those done, I'm going to start laying out these card fronts. Now I'm picking one of the little small leaf patterns and I'm using peeled paint, and I just stamped directly on to that card front. Now this first one, I decided to cut a diagonal just to kind of add some interest to the card. And then I'm just going to adhere it directly onto my card front. No 3D foam tape or anything. And then I am going to go ahead and ink up my sentiment. Again, using that charcoal ink instead of a stark black. So my hope is to add the flower pieces kind of in that same gradient that the color is. And so I can kind of keep it in a color family. So all those floral pieces were added with foam tape, and then I'm taking some stickles. Now this is the diamond stickles, and I had forgotten that I had cut the tip off of that bottle, and so I got some pretty big blobs. You'll have to hang around to the end of the video to see how big those blobs of those stickles were, but I ended up loving it. So I'm going to do the same thing with this card and just kind of keep the colors in their own little space. And I also loved that I ended up sponging those flowers all on one piece because some of the sponging actually got on the different flowers. And so you'll see at the end of the video where one flower will have that abandoned coral as well as the spiced marmalade, or maybe the marmalade and the mustard seed. So right here, I ended up stamping that sentiment crooked. So no worries, it's a stamp. So I just stamped it on a separate piece of cardstock and then used some 3D foam tape to pop that up. And aside from anyone watching this video, you never know that I messed up. Now, again, back to these stickles. I love that the diamond stickles take on the color that you uh, plop it down on, for lack of a better word. So you'll see that in the end, and I just love that it takes on that color property. So I had a hard time with these last two cards. So I'm going to go ahead and do that sentiment and attach that larger flower, but then I'm going to have to come back to this card for the rest of the flowers. So for this fourth and final card, again, I'm going to go ahead and tape that card front down to my card base. And these are standard size cards. And then I'm going to try to play around with the flowers. I'm pulling some smaller floral images from the stamp set just to kind of add, I ran out of the ones that I had already inked up. So it was a little sparse. So I went ahead and I stamped these little bitty tiny flowers and little dots onto the card base just to kind of fill up some of that empty space. So right here, I'm going to add some stickles, and then off camera, I ended up stamping a different flower and sponging it. And so I'm going to add some 3D foam tape to that flower piece, put that down, and then again add some more stickles. And then we're pretty much done with these four cards. Here are some close-ups for you. Again, I love these Distress Oxides. I love the stickles. See that big blob of stickles? And then you can see where that diamond stickles took on the color property of that mustard seed. And here are a couple of final close-ups for you. Again, this stamp set benefits Operation Smile. It's really easy for you to purchase, and then Close to My Heart sends the donation directly to Operation Smile. If you liked what you saw, please leave me a thumbs up and consider leaving a comment. And as always, I would love to have you subscribe and sign up for notifications.